years, Silas stood within the rigid architecture of the traditional classroom. The desks were bolted to the floor in a relentless grid, mirroring the static state of the minds within them. Every lesson was a lecture delivered to a sea of stillness, where information arrived as a ghost and vanished before the bell. The weight of this stagnation was a heavy cloak. Silas felt the flicker of his own passion dimming, the dreaded educator burnout. It was not a lack of knowledge, but a lack of space. The brain was never meant to learn in a vacuum of motion. It was evolved to navigate, to explore, and to remember through the terrain. In the quiet of the library, Silas discovered the principle of neurospatial authority. He read of the hippocampus, the brain's internal GPS, and how it binds memory to location. He realized that to save his students and himself, he had to transform the abstract into the architectural. He had to map the curriculum onto the floor. The transformation began with the removal of the barriers. Silas pushed the desks to the periphery, reclaiming the center of the room as a theater of movement. He prepared to initiate the physicality shift, where every coordinate in the room would hold a specific vital piece of a complex theory. Sora entered the room with the familiar slouch of disengagement. To her, school was a series of screens and seats, a place where her body was a nuisance to be ignored. Silas greeted her not with a book, but with an invitation to step into the first coordinate of the day's journey. "Don't just listen to the concept," Silas said. "Inhabit it." Sora took a step, and as her foot landed on the orange circle, a projection of a complex historical timeline flared to life around her. This was the mapping of abstract data to physical space, forcing the brain to encode the information through the act of navigation. Silas guided Sora through the room, moving from the orange circle to a blue square, then a green triangle. Each shape represented a different facet of the lesson. By physically walking the logic of the argument, Sora was no longer a passive observer. She was a cartographer of her own understanding. As Sora moved, her hippocampus fired with the intensity of a traveler in an unknown land. The movement acted as a mnemonic anchor. She wasn't just memorizing a date, she was memorizing the feeling of turning left toward the window to find it. The physicality shift had turned the classroom into a living memory palace. By the end of the hour, the disengagement had vanished. Sora stood at the final coordinate, her eyes bright with the clarity of someone who had traveled a great distance. Silas felt the burnout lift, replaced by the surge of neurospatial authority. They had turned the grid into a journey. The world outside remained a grid, but within these walls, the revolution had begun. Silas looked out at the horizon of modern education, knowing that the secret to the future lay in the ancient rhythm of our feet. To move is to learn. To navigate is to know.